Andrea James, the FreeHer podcast, all things ending incarceration of women and girls. We're here with a special edition of FreeHer, covering the FreeHer conference, our 7th conference. The theme this year is all about healing, reflection. We're here in Puerto Rico, one of the most beautiful islands, a beautiful place of liberators, people fighting for the liberation still of this island. What better place to be here with so many leaders in our space, formerly incarcerated women who have just made a decision that we collectively, from coast to coast, are going to end the incarceration of women and girls. It's my absolute pleasure to have sitting across from me Denise, we call her Nisi, DeQuagan. Very, very happy to have you here. And we can talk about so many issues. So many issues. Nisi, you served 38 years in prison. There's so many issues in regard to women and incarceration that we could talk to you about. And we hope to have an even deeper conversation at another time about some of those other things. Today, we're hoping to raise awareness about the issue of what we know is what is called a bifurcated system. And what does that mean, a bifurcated system? In the United States, you can be convicted using the same fact pattern. You can be convicted of something, be sentenced in the federal system, and then also owe a pound of flesh or decades of flesh to a state system as well. And that was your fate, Nisi. I want people to understand what that is. First of all, that it exists, and if you could talk a little bit about that. And then what was the circumstances around you doing time in the federal prison system and then having to go into a state prison system and do a significant amount of years in Mississippi. Can you talk to us about that?
Yes. My name is Denise Coleman, and I can elaborate very well. But before I do, I want to thank you for all that you do. My most important slogan is Fannie Lou Hamer. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that's the point that I had got to when I was in prison. That was a point to me where I'm an only child. So I was trying to figure my way out, figure how can I do this? I wasn't even thinking about outside, going home. I was put myself where I was at, right where I was at. And everything that I was coming in having to deal with on every encounter everything that I came in contact with, I had to figure it out. Everything. Because that system is a horrible, corrupt system that needs to be done and over with.
So you started out in the federal system. How many years in the federal system did you do?
I did 30 years.
30 years in the federal system.
Mm-hmm.
And you were moved pretty much to every
facility
prison
for standing up for what I believed in.
For standing up for what you believed in. And then you served your time in the federal system. You received what we call an out date. And tell us what happened after that.
I received the out date, but I already knew that Mississippi had a, what you call it? I done tried to leave all that alone. Mississippi had a hold on me. So we wrote them and asked them to act on it. What do you want from me? They never.
So from 30 years ago.
From 30 years ago.
The state of Mississippi still
still held that over my head when I was sentenced to a concurrent life sentence, which meant that every day, my paperwork clearly states every day that I did for the feds was a day for the state. So when it was time for me to go, I went back to the parole board. They had a special hearing. They called me back. I went and I was like, what should I do now? What to expect? What do I expect? And he said, just wait, you'll hear from us. So when they called me to tell me that I was getting ready to go home, I just was like, here they go playing with my head again. They're messing with me.
Because you knew that Mississippi had not been addressed yet.
Yes, I knew that they hadn't answered. Only thing they said was they had a paperwork with me having a life sentence, state and feds, but they never answered what we asked them, what my case manager wrote and said, what do you want to happen? Nothing.
So no response.
So no response.
So when did you find out that you were going to leave the feds and have to go into state after 30 years of incarceration, go into state custody in Mississippi?
I dressed out, Andrea. I dressed out to go home to New Orleans.
Let's tell the folks who all of us dress out when we leave. What does that mean?
That mean that if you haven't had clothes on in 30 years, you getting ready to get your best suit, whatever that may be. Well, my mother had died. I don't have any family besides my daughter. I had 2 daughters. My other daughter passed away.
During your
And
incarceration.
during my incarceration. And a friend sent me some clothes. And the sister said, I want you to look your best when you go out. Well, when I got to R&D,
R&D
I wasn't
is
going.
where we go.
Where we go,
We come in through
R&D,
R&D
and you go
and
out
you go out through
through
R&D.
R&D.
And you got to R&D, and what did they say? After 30 years of incarceration,
that I would not be leaving, that the state was going to pick me up. So I had to go to show you they didn't have it together. They didn't pick me up and I went straight to Mississippi. They picked me up and I had to go on to Leon County in Tallahassee, Florida and wait till they got their work together, paperwork or whatever, to transport me. So that's where I was at when I got.
and how long did that, so after leaving a federal prisons for 30 years, you had to go to a county jail in Florida. And we all know the difference between figuring out how to live inside of a prison as opposed to now having to go to a county jail with all of that craziness and noise, and it's transitory and people coming and going and unsettled and traumatizing after 30 years of incarceration. How long did you have to stay in that jail?
I stayed there, I think 3 days.
Yeah.
I stayed there 3 days.
And so Mississippi then came and picked you up and took you where?
They picked me up and transported me. I was the only woman in a cage on the bus. I'm talking about a cage like a box. Feet shackled, hands shackled, the whole bit. Inside the cage, locked. And the men were sitting.
And the men who were being transported
were sitting right there.
Were sitting on the bus outside of the cage. And they put you in the cage on the bus because you were a woman. You're a woman. And you went where?
I went to, well, they had different stops. They stopped in Houston. They stopped Alabama. They would stop and dropping guys off. And they was just stopping everywhere. I was the last one to go to Mississippi. I was the only woman on there, still on the bus, chained up in the
cage.
In the cage. Yes.
Last person on the bus.
Last person on the bus, still chained up. So if something would have happened and the bus would have turned over, it wouldn't have been I couldn't help my own self. I wouldn't have been able to get out.
How long was that? Was that
That
a
ride was all day and all night,
all day and all night?
all day.
Was there a bathroom on the bus?
No,
So what you finally pulled up where?
I pulled up at Mississippi Correctional Facility in Pearl, Mississippi.
In Pearl, Mississippi, a women's prison.
Yes.
What how many people, how many women were in that prison? Do you remember?
Well, they house women and men. They had men and women there. They had a side for men and they had women, but it's supposed to be a women's facility. I was sentenced to the most horrific prison, I think, in the world, and that's Parchman Penitentiary. That's where I was sentenced to. But they got the women out of there after so many years, like in the early 80s. So I stayed in federal prison, so they hadn't got, the women was already gone, so it was no sense in. I went to MDOC, Mississippi Department of Corrections in Pearl, Mississippi.
And you stayed there after 30 years of serving a sentence in the federal prison system.
Mhm.
You went to a prison in Mississippi
Yes.
and were there for how long?
I was there till 2018.
So 8 more
Mhm.
years for a total of 38 years. When did you find out that you would be released from Mississippi?
Well, it's a story to that. They were moving all the women out of the unit that I was in, all the lifers, to um, a place they call a family house. So when they got ready to move them out, they called all the names and didn't call my name. So I say, wait a minute. I say, I'm a lifer. I said, I haven't, my name is not on that list. They say no. So this unit was also for people who coming in, new people that's just coming into prison. I was a lifer that stayed in that unit, the only one that was left behind. So at that point, I got to the place where I said, oh my God, I said, you mean to tell me it's like this, that I'm never, I can't go to the family house? I won't be released to go to the family house out of this unit? Because it was like an intake unit. So, no, I wasn't going. So the next day I went to my hobbycraft class. And I was sitting there and I was knitting and I was trying to make something, I think a scarf or something. Anyway, the case manager passed through. She said, hey, Denise, I need to see you. I said, me? I said, why you need to see me? You're not my case manager. She said, oh, your case manager's not here. She said, come go with me. I said, well, nobody's here, no supervisor is here for me to tell that I'm leaving with you. She said, okay, I'll tell you what, let me make a phone call. So she did, and I went with her. So when we got to our office, she said, anybody called you and told you that you got any news from the parole board? I said, no, I haven't heard anything. So she said, wait a minute, let me go to my computer. So she right there, and she'd do everything. She said, she got the paper off the printer. She said, you mean to tell me you haven't gotten this? I said, is that my notice of action? I said, wait a minute, let me sit down. Let me sit down and get myself together. She said, you don't have to get yourself together, honey. I said, well, let me stand up. I got to do something. So I stood up against the wall. She said, I said, tell me what it says. Just read it. Just read it off, whatever it says. She said, you're going home. And I just sat down. I slid down the wall and sat on the floor. And I said, excuse me, sister. I said, but today is a good day for you. And she said, a good day for me to do what? I'm trying to tell you something. I said, don't play with me. It's not today. She said, Nisi, you're going home. I said, I don't believe you. I didn't believe her. I just didn't. I couldn't even all what I had been through from leaving the federal system and being in the state, I seen so much. I endured so much. I was full. So the phone calls that we could make, I made one phone call to my friend Robin, and I said, "Sister, I done had enough. I don't think I'm gonna make it." She said, "I have never heard you say that. Don't say that." I said, "I'm telling you, I'm full." She said, "Niecy, I'm coming for you, I'm telling you." And I wrote everybody I could write to ask. I didn't have nowhere to go, Andrea. I didn't have no home.
38 years.
My mother had passed. Everybody, my family had been torn apart. You know, I just didn't have nowhere to go. My children, when people raising your children, they tell them what they want. They tell them anything. If they're not no people that care, you know what I'm saying? So the children, my daughter grew up like, "Mom, I didn't know where you was at. And I thought you just didn't want me." That's how she felt. So it was hard for me. And I wrote them, and they never gave them a letter that I wrote. They never gave them a letter. Me and my children, my mom, all my family was close. How could you do this to me? How could you not share with my daughter my letter?
Nisi, you have been one of the anchors in our movement. You are an elder in our space. You are somebody that we look up to. After 38 years living within those two prison systems, and if people don't understand, the federal system is no walk in the park. Mississippi is one of the worst prison systems on the planet. What is it, Nisi, that you are so incredibly powerful? When we're tired, you're always saying something to get us back up. Every day you send me a note, you send me a text message of joy, of flowers, of happiness, of the sun rising, of a cup of coffee, pictures. Um, what is it, Nisi, that had you come out after 38 years when you could have just taken your life and gone on? Like, I'm done. I don't want to talk about this anymore. I don't want to deal with this anymore. I don't want to have anything to do with incarceration and any conversation about it. But you do. Why?
Because I had sisters, the days that I felt bad, I was young. So the days that I stayed in lockdown, when I first entered the institution, because I was a lifer, because I was young, in Alderson, West Virginia, was a FCI at that time. I went to the hole, so I stayed in the SHU, special housing unit, until they got the paperwork. They say they didn't have the paperwork. So if you don't have the paperwork, why am I here? How did I get here? If you didn't have no paperwork to transport me, why am I here? So I guess they needed more, a jacket or something or whatever. But anyway, I stayed in the hole, and I was locked up with some really strong political prisoners. And they are the ones who sent their energy to me for me to breathe every day and to do something when I got out of that SHU, because they didn't know if they were getting out. I was on that chain with the political prisoners, for as um, Delcia Pagan, um, Maria, I can't think of her last name. The other sisters was that shoulders I stood on was Ida Robinson, Rodriguez Robinson. Um, so many sisters, just Marilyn Buck was one. So many. Laura Whitehorn was one. So many sisters that was so strong that I didn't have a choice because they was breathing into me and I was absorbing it. And everything that they were saying, I was listening. Only thing I knew, look at the conditions that we're living under. I knew then when they start saying abolitionists, it's like back then you could really say too loud because you'd be marked for inciting a riot. So it wasn't but a few years later, I got that mark, inciting a riot, because I felt like the conditions we were living in was not right, was not good. The food, the mold, and every time it's come for inspection, we're going to paint over the mold. We're going to paint over the asbestos that we're breathing on the jobs. I had to work industry. I worked industry and I became the best builder and had never built nothing in my life. But I just put my mind to what I had to do because I didn't have nobody to take care of me. I couldn't go to school and I wanted to go, but I had to take care of myself. It's hard when you're trying to make it on your own, by yourself. You know, you didn't have nobody to give you, nobody to share. But the sisters that when I was in federal prison, but when I went to state prison, it was different. It was a different type of share. In other words, sometimes you just have to let people know who you are. Like the brother said, I want you to come out. I want you to speak. So I said, hey, today is not the day. Today is a good day for all of us. So is it going to be a good day or are we going to fight today? Which one is it? Whatever one you choose and want to do, I got a lot of frustration, so let's get it off. It didn't go that way at all. They said, Nisi, we hear you and we see you and we love you and we're going to ride with you. And that's what they did. So every time they come, it was like, pull the bus up because we getting ready to go. Y'all don't think y'all going, if you can't stand, just sit down, but support it, you know? So I say, and from you, I say, I'm an abolitionist. I want all prisons gone. Nobody should be in there. And under that old law, that need to be corrected because they got so many brothers and sisters under that old law that's still inside that shouldn't even be in there. Maybe they don't have nowhere to go now. Maybe they have lost all their family and don't have nowhere to go. But it's for us to talk to the case managers on the inside, case manager coordinators, and implement that. Implement that. If they don't have nowhere to go, can they go to a transition home? I was in Mississippi in the state. Nobody wouldn't take me. Oh, she been inside too long. She on mental health medication. I've never taken a psychotropic drug the whole time I was locked up. No time did ever have I been on a psychotropic anything. Now, was I damaged? Was I suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome? Of course. I had lost everybody except my children, my one daughter. Everybody. Was I suffering from it? Yes, I was. But I had to do what I learned how to do, to sit still and meditate. Meditate. And I talked to the Creator and I told him, there's no way I can do this. So you got to give me the strength.
Nisi, I want your permission to ask
Mm-hmm.
you about your daughter.
Yes.
You were incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
What year were you on when your daughter passed away?
I was transferred from the feds to the state in 2012, and that's the year she died. 2012. May, wait a minute. December 2nd. My mother died May 29th. My daughter died December 2nd, 2012.
When you do 38 years of incarceration, and during that time, you lose a child, how do you continue to move? How do you continue to stand up?
It's like me and my daughter wrote each other all the time. So she, in her last months, like the last 3 months, she said, Mom, they say there's nothing else they could do for these kidneys. Nothing. She said, I went down last week, meaning she had went to the hospital and her heart went out. She was having a heart attack. They had to revive her. She said, but I didn't die because my daddy said I had to go back. So people don't believe in that type of stuff, you know? But I say, you seen your dad? She said, I seen my dad. He said, you got to go back for your mother. She came back. They transferred her to Tulane Hospital in New Orleans because whatever they had in Louisiana wasn't enough. They had to transfer her to work on her. But she had a roommate that sent the letter to me. The roommate sent the letter, and the letter was telling me what she wanted me to do if something happened to her. However, she passed. I had the letter. I sent it home to my sister-in-law. When I tell you that kid wrote her own obituary, and when I asked, when she was sick, I asked, is there anything I could do to go see her? They said no. So
So your daughter is dying. She's
my daughter's
sick,
dying.
and the prison would not give you permission to go and be with your daughter.
Right. So they said she was dead. They told me she was dead. And when they said she was dead, I was like, oh my God, what I'm going to do? Guess what they told me? The lieutenant said, can you have somebody bring her body if you want to see her to the state line? I said, what did you say? Bring her body to the state line. I almost lost it then, but something held me. I just got the strength from somewhere. I don't know where, but I got it. And from that day on, I just kept on going. And I just kept on talking inside and kept on saying and what I wanted to do and how I can do it and who can I write and how can I keep on communicating and conversating with people on the outside. So it was Laura Whitehorn. It was Robin Lucas. It was Ida Mae Robinson. And I just wrote different people and just pleaded my case just like that. I lost everything. Is there anybody out there who could speak the language to help me get out of prison? I can't speak the language. I don't know the language. I don't know the law language. But this is what I know. I know that I was sentenced to 2 life sentences under the old law, a concurrent life sentence, I should say. Sentenced to a concurrent life sentence, and I need some help under the old law. Is there anybody out there, anywhere, who can help me? They had brushed me under the rug, Andrea, and threw away the key. Nobody knew where I was at. Laura said, I had no idea. Everybody was like, I don't have no idea. I don't have no idea where she's at. Anybody heard from her? Nobody had heard from me because we thought I was going home and I left out that federal system off those grounds.
And lo and behold, those women that supported you inside did not know that you had been sent to the state of Mississippi. Well, Nisi, this is a issue that we need to explore more. We need to create more of a platform to have this conversation. I remember when I was inside at Danbury, there was a woman that happened to. She got her out date. Everybody celebrated that she was going home. And at the bottom of the driveway was the state waiting to take her. And unfortunately, she didn't have as much information as you did, and wasn't really aware. that they had a detainer on her for that state. And so, and she had young children, and she thought after serving 10 years in the federal system that she was going home. So this is something that people don't understand. I mean, how much time is enough time? You know, and so as abolitionists, we believe any time is enough time.
Anytime, a day.
A day. But I want to thank you, Nisi. I want to thank you for being a support to me. When I get down, when I feel like I just, I'm just tired, I just want to put it all down. I think about all the sisters inside and I just can't put it down. But it's you who really, keeps the light on for us. I say, well, if if Nisi is still out here and she's so positive and you're such an inspiration and you're so powerful and you exude such strength and you have such grace, if you're able to continue to do this work, then so am I. Then so am I. And I love you and I want to say thank you. And I look forward to continuing the conversation with you because 38 years of incarceration, there's a lot of issues that we're trying to raise awareness about that you can talk about. And so we hope that you'll be a partner in this FreeHer podcast with us.
I would love to be that. And there's so much that the people outside don't know. They don't have the sister like you was talking about, the sister that died and passed. We don't know what she went through. She probably didn't do anything to cause that, to be beat to death. And so many other sisters just pass. They pass away. They grieve. They hurt. So much pain, so much anguish, just so much till they can't take it. I was inside and watched the girl sit up on her bed in the state penitentiary and cut her throat. And I was like, huh. And on TikTok, they got a sister that put me on TikTok because she said, you saved me. This song, you saved me. She tried to kill herself. And I didn't do no more than act just like I would want someone to save my kids or tell my kids the truth. I want them to know that I was there for that sister. I was there. And she sings about it. I had no idea about TikTok. And she said, you saved me.
Well, I want to say thank you. Thank you for saving us. Thank you for all of your work. Thank you for the work with the most powerful Rukia Lumumba, the Lumumba
Powerful
family in Jackson, Mississippi.
Yes.
All of the wisdom that you have poured into us about what it's like to have a real people-led movement. All the things that Rukia have taught us as well.
Yes.
And that you have helped us to learn. So I just really want to say thank you. You're a hero, shero to me.
Yes.
You're a mentor to me. You're an inspiration. And I want to say thank you, Nisi. I look forward to continuing our conversation.
Thank you. I'm ready
Thank you.
and willing.